I want to introduce you to Tracy, who's going to tell us just one story and the deep distress that one drug user could cause to an entire family, not just to themselves, but to those who care for them and love them.
It's been a really emotional week for me. I've just dropped my son back at rehab. He came out for his 3-day pass, and it was just amazing to see him. He's got his life back. He's just full of excitement for his future. And after so many years of losing him almost to the brink of death, we now have our son back. Our daughter's still hurting from what he did when he was using marijuana. She told us that if we allow him back in the house, that she's done with us. We really had no choice. We had to have him back in our home, in his passes. And so he came home, and I guess marijuana didn't just take one of our children. It wants to take our family. And it just feels like we've got our son back, and now we are losing our daughter. And when I was thinking about how to portray the last 8 years, I went back to my childhood that had a few hairy moments. I grew up in Africa, and I was born in a civil war, and I remember it very well. On occasions, it came as close as my doorstep. This war lasted for 12 years of my life, and I remember traveling out to our family farm most weekends. My dad always had a few guns in the car, always loaded with the safety catch on, ready to defend his family in case the terrorists ambushed us on the way. It was a long and scary journey for a young child, and I was always wondering whether we would be attacked or not. And I remember pressing my body as close to the back of the car seat as I could, as I figured if the terrorists did start shooting at us, hopefully the bullets would miss me. I remember that when I did hold a gun, even with the safety catch on, I felt a cautious unease, as I knew exactly what they were capable of. But I will say that the experience I had journeying with a marijuana-addicted child was far more traumatizing than anything I went through in my childhood. Marijuana never had that safety catch that I could click on to stop the terrible consequences. To watch my precious child go through an absolute metamorphosis from being a bouncy, happy, loving, caring, full of life little boy into a stony-eyed, shifty, unpredictable, angry, psychotic, and destructive man, my heart was as broken as his life. The harder I tried to protect him, the more difficult it became. I could literally feel the downward spiral, and I was helpless to stop it. This drug was slowly but surely causing my child to die in front of my eyes, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The exhaustion set in, and then to follow was the PTSD and insomnia caused by living off adrenaline 24/7. To repeat the cliche, I was living every parent's worst nightmare. And so I've thought about how I may help other parents to see the signs so that they are able to react in time, hoping that what I say will resonate deeply and be an effective tool for preparation of parenting in this minefield of treachery. I'm just an ordinary mum who has over the years tried her hardest to be there for all my children and has given everything to make sure they have what they need. I naively thought that this would be enough. That teaching them right from wrong, giving them a stable environment and a good school and plenty of love would ensure that they all make the right choices later on. Well, I was gravely mistaken. For me, it has been a bittersweet story, as my son has come out the other side, still alive and well on the way to being integrated back into society with a bright future ahead of him. And I couldn't help him with the hardest part of his journey. It was one of my hardest struggles as a parent to put every single part of her life into her children, sacrificing career and all other things to be able to give them the best of myself. I so wanted to be with him and help him, and for the first time in his life, I couldn't. In fact, I had to get used to the idea that I may have enabled him in his addiction. That was so hard, knowing that my love and support actually was not helping but prolonging the problem. As a mother, this cruelly forces you to be severed from your child, and this was particularly heartbreaking, but crucial to his recovery and healing and mine. As he spent more time in rehab, he started opening up with me and sharing his journey. He told me that he first started using marijuana when he was 13 years old. He said, "Mum, they told me it was harmless fun. They said I could get off at any time I wanted and that it was recreational." I was absolutely stunned that that word was used to describe marijuana. "Really?" I said, horrified at the acceptance and the complacency of something that had caused our family so much pain. It did not feel very recreational to me, lying in bed night after night for years, wondering if my son would make it home alive, while he trawled the streets late at night, high on weed and hooning. A friend of mine says that his angels were always putting in a lot of overtime. It didn't feel very recreational getting a phone call on Christmas morning when I wished my husband happy Christmas, and his words back to me were, "He's been in an accident. He's rolled his 4x4 and the police are after him." Car after car was totaled as his perception of risk was numbed and his reaction time slowed. Job after job was lost through his inability to concentrate. Court cases for dangerous driving, credit cards stolen for us, huge rages when he didn't get his next joint in time to calm him down from his previous one. Furniture thrown, holes punched in walls, and years of family trauma, not just to us, but to our other children also. He told me of episodes of psychosis, severe paranoia, and sleep paralysis, where he felt that something very heavy was pushing down on his chest, and he could not move or breathe. Our whole family was in stress and trauma, just from this harmless recreational drug. In the end, he used to take very long, hot showers. I never knew why, until one day the shower had been going for about an hour, and I thought I'd better check on him. I opened the door and the steam bellowed out, and when it settled, I saw my 6'4" son curled up on the shower floor, writhing in pain. I looked up and I saw the precipitation on the walls, and it was dripping down, but it wasn't clear like water, but it was a brown tar color, covering every side of the walls. This nightmare I was looking at stays with me even today. I was so shocked. What was happening to him? It took me a while to work out, but I eventually realized that his liver and his kidneys were not coping with the toxic chemical load in his body and needed help to expel them. The skin is another organ that the body uses to expel toxins, and this long showering habit was his body compelling him to sweat it out, to help his kidneys and his liver that were not managing anymore. I read up on a condition called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which are compulsive hot water showers from long-term heavy marijuana use. Symptoms include vomiting, nausea, and terribly sore stomachs, only relieved by hot, sweaty baths or showers. His body was going into a toxic state and was not coping, and I don't think he at this stage thought that cannabis was harmless or recreational.
Places where it's recreational. We see a ton of this in Colorado, by the way, in flooding emergency rooms. Probably over 3 million people in the United States are affected, because what happens is the pot, when you start using a lot of it, turns off the receptors in the nerves that are supposed to suppress nausea and pain. So you're nauseous, you're in pain, and the only thing that works for this, Tucker, is hot showers. It floods the receptors, it turns them back on, you go back to normal, but you got to be in the shower for 6 hours. Guess what the cure is? Stop smoking pot.
He said to me one day, "Mum, I thought I could stop at any time I wanted, but my body let me down." I thought for a moment and said, "I think it was more than your body that let you down. It was that message that you were told when you were 13 about it being harmless and recreational. He was deceived and lied to, as so many of our children are today. And this is why I'm here now, sharing my story with you. We as parents need to change this message that is so strongly out there, that marijuana is harmless and recreational. Please, everyone, I urge you not to be silent, not to be complacent, and especially do not let yourselves or your children be deceived about this drug. I share my journey with anyone who may be interested, and I can tell you that everyone I speak to either has had someone in their family or someone that they know who is affected by drugs. This evil is closer to home than you may think, and it will steal, kill, and destroy lives and families if it is not more truthfully acknowledged. Let's not be silent about this, because our children's lives matter and are too precious to risk allowing them to be deceived. Let's all be proactive and change this deception together, and let's give our children hope and a better future. The message that I lived would say, marijuana will lead you and your family down to the pit of hell. And if you're lucky enough to get out the other side in one piece, you and your family's whole lives will be shattered, and it will take a long time to put back together. The pain and the heartache isn't over for us yet. There are the broken sibling relationships from the years of neglect of the other children in the family, while the parents are trying to save the addicted child. There is resentment, bitterness, post-traumatic stress, and heartache because of the trauma that was brought into the house from this harmless drug. My son said he lives with the guilt and shame of what he has done to everyone every day of his life. This journey is no picnic, and we all need to become more aware of the truth of marijuana and the real story about what it does. There are 3 words that I would like to talk about, as in my opinion, they are the most dangerous words and should be avoided at all costs when parenting children. The first word is assumption. The dictionary says that it's a thing that's accepted as true or as certain to happen without proof. As a parent, we assume that if we give our children everything they need while they are growing up, like lots of love and emotional support, a stable home environment, good schools, good food, and good moral teaching, that they will make good choices from that stability that you have tried to create. We also assume that the world out there is going to give them the same message when it comes to risk and core values and the things that we know will hurt them. Wrong. Once your children leave the 4 walls of your house, they are being preyed upon and deceived and lied to and told exactly the opposite of what you have instilled in them. The first lie that they're told is that your parents are idiots and they know nothing. That one-liner erodes all parents' best efforts. Then they are told how good marijuana is and how everyone is doing it and everyone is fine and it's recreational and they can get off it any time they like. Their own friends are the ones selling the lies to them. Look, I'm fine and I'm on it. It's fun. I ask parents one simple question. What messages are your children receiving from their school and from society in general? Do you know who's educating your children and what they are telling them? Don't assume. Find out and act on the information. Make sure that they are being taught that drugs kill you and not the message out there that's going around, that they can use drugs, just use them safely. There's no such thing as using drugs safely. That's an oxymoron. Drugs are deadly, including marijuana. The second word is presumption. The dictionary says it's an idea that is taken to be true on the basis of probability. So on the basis of probability, that odd behavior that I'm seeing in my child of slowly withdrawing from the family, disconnection, less and less communication, wearing hoodies all the time, and that stony-eyed stare is probably hormonal. They are transitioning into adulthood and are moody. On the basis of probability, my good teaching and loving parenting means they will overcome their hormones and resist temptation and eventually grow into the stable adults we have tried so hard to create. Wrong. Marijuana will do this to your child and more. And by the time you find out that it's not hormones or teenage moodiness, it's too late. I felt like I had been hit by a freight train when I realized that we were dealing with something much more serious than I thought. And by the time I realized it was already too late, he was severely addicted. This drug stole 7 years of our lives. It starts out insidiously, meaning proceeding in a gradual way, but with very harmful effects. Then, like a parasite, it will slowly but surely suck the life and joy out of its victim and their family. I read about the boiling frog fable, describing a frog slowly being boiled alive. The premise being that if the frog is put suddenly into the boiling water, it will jump out. But if the frog is put into tepid water, which is then slowly brought to the boil, it will not perceive the danger and it will be cooked to death. Marijuana works exactly like that, and it will have the same effect on your children. By the time I realized that my son had a problem, it was at the point of life or death for him. The third word is perception. The dictionary says the way in which something is regarded, understood, or interpreted. As a parent, never perceive anything is a certain way. I perceived that they had had enough good groundwork and foundations and would be fine, as I thought they were intelligent and well educated, and they had so much love from me. I interpreted their change of character as puberty. I believe this is how the scourge of marijuana infiltrated and masked over and deceived all my motherly instincts, because it comes in at the same time as puberty, and in the beginning insidiously mimics the behavior of hormonal ups and downs. Looking back, where there is smoke, there is fire. Don't be deceived by the teenage hormones message. As soon as you start seeing hoodies, shifty, stony eyes, disconnection, lack of communication, and of course, Visine eye drops to hide the red eyes, then you need to be on high alert and get some help as soon as possible. They will always deny it, and they will always lie to you to keep you from finding out. But eventually you will find evidence. The other wrong perception that we have as parents is that the rest of our society will give our children the same message. But as I've already said, I was horribly wrong. The general consensus is, use drugs safely, but just don't die. There is little or no drug education messages getting out to the children. And marijuana use seems to have become embedded in their culture. They are being deceived and made to feel that it is a safe, recreational pastime that will make them forget about their worries and their strife, as the song says. As parents, we are going to have to change this damaging message and to make our voices heard. That we have had enough of the wishy-washy messaging out there that our children are getting, and that it has to change. We are tired of our children's lives being endangered from this deception. And we want to make sure that the truth is announced and pronounced very loudly. Otherwise, more of our precious children will be deceived and lied to and preyed upon, because they are naive, impressionable, and they want to fit in with the popular culture. As parents, not doing anything about this damaging message is the same as playing Russian roulette with your children's lives. Some will make it through the lies and deception, and some won't. It is not worth taking the risk with your children. Speak out loudly, and when enough of us have spoken, we will not be able to be ignored. In Africa, a lioness will defend her cubs to the death, even going up against a male lion twice her size. We all need to have the same mindset when it comes to protecting our children. The problem this country has is enormous and will touch every single child. But we can collectively start to change that by being actively involved in making sure that this complacent message about drugs is changed. Lastly, I would like to thank and acknowledge Teen Challenge in Kyabram, who without their help, my son would not be the man he is today. Their program has turned his life around and given him his life back and given us our son back. This organization is not just for teenagers, as the name depicts, and it takes in men of all ages with any addictions. So as a grateful parent, I would like to end by saying thank you, first to God and then to Teen Challenge, who were able to do immeasurably more than I could ever ask for or imagine.